All right, I call this meeting of the CCS Circulation Technical Group to order. It is 9:32 on Friday the 13th. Minutes have been distributed to everybody in the email with this link. Were there any corrections or additions to those minutes? All right, hearing none, I will dub the minutes approved as distributed.
There was something in chat, I think.
That was a question I asked Cheryl about something we
Oh,
discussed.
okay.
So I'm gonna
Said yes, please. I thought maybe there was
Yes.
something unchanged.
So I'm gonna add that really quick.
Turn on my chat.
Um,
Oh, there it is. Okay, sorry.
Nope, you're good. You're checking that.
I got it on now so I can see what it says.
And I'm trying to think Rails codes. That's what I'm going to do. So we had one more addition to the agenda. So if y'all will bear with me while I slowly type. Actually, I can do this while Mieko and Deborah do things. I have nothing to report. It's here. Or do you have anything to report?
Well, we just approval of the minutes and my thank you to Mieko for doing the minutes when I had to be out of town. It was well worth it. My uncle Bob went to see my Uncle Bob and he unfortunately passed away a couple of weeks afterwards. So I am so glad I went. So thank you. Thank you. But I'm happy to make any adjustments if Mieko might have made a slight error somewhere. So are we good? Do we have to vote on that?
Nope, that was me doing the blanket, so we don't have to vote. So we are all covered. I'm doing the
minutes. Yes.
Yes, the good one. So nothing to report for me.
Yeah, it's a thank you from me.
That was a thank you. And then I think we can just move on to the CCS staff reports. Mieko, it looks like you're up for the first.
Well, the first thing I'm going to do is add a link to the meeting sign-in form to the chat. Let me pop that in. I will email this out after the meeting as well. So if you don't get a chance during the meeting to add your name to the sign-in sheet for attendance, you will have the opportunity later today. I do have just a couple quick announcements to add to my list. One thing I forgot to add, Carrie, was that our next meeting is going to take place in April, and that's actually going to be our last meeting of the fiscal year. So hard to believe, but it's time to elect new officers soon. So as vice chair, Athena will become our current chair next year. So we will be taking nominations for a new vice chair and a new secretary. I will send out more information as we get closer to April. If you're curious or interested or have any questions, please reach out to me directly. Happy to share the information with you. And then the more exciting news I have is that we have 2 new CCS libraries since we last met in October. So first of all, governing board voted to welcome Warren Newport Public Library into CCS at their October meeting. So CCS, Warren Newport, and Innovative are starting the work to migrate the library. We're still solidifying dates. We are looking for a go live in September. So with that, you will see many, many more updates and news in the coming months. Do we have anyone from Warren Newport here today? I just want to make sure if we do, we get to say hello. And then I don't know if anyone here has heard earlier this week at the January governing board meeting, they approved membership for Mount Prospect Public Library. Their membership will be effective as of November 2023. So they will be migrating in 2024. So we are I guess officially at 30 libraries strong now, which is pretty awesome.
So wait, so Mount Prospect was just approved?
Yes.
So that one won't have, they won't be doing what Warren Newport's doing until 2024.
Correct.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Cool.
No, you don't have to worry.
That gives us 30?
30. Yeah. Nice round number. Okay, and now I will share my screen and get to the stuff that's actually on the agenda.
No, don't worry about it. Let's use this.
So I've got
one
my slides here.
4 hours today. Do you know what I mean?
Carrie, you gave me a thumbs up if they're appearing on screen. Excellent. Okay, so just a few things on my end. The first,
And you could only.
oh yeah, I'm just gonna mute everyone real quick
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Few quick updates on web reports, and I just want to highlight a new-ish report that we have available to libraries. So the first update is to the monthly patrons expiration date next month report. This report is found under the patron management section. This report runs on the 1st of every month, so the updates aren't going to be available until February 1st. This report lists patrons who will expire the following month. So starting with the next report, starting February 1st, the report will now include a second tab that lists patrons who will expire in 2 months. So we'll have a tab for patrons who expire the following month and a tab for patrons who expire in 2 months. So February 1st report will have one tab that lists patrons who expire in March and a second tab that lists patrons who expire in April. This is just to help any libraries who want to do some like in-house marketing for those soon to expire patrons. They just have a little more lead time to get those communications out. And then the second update is to the daily and monthly detailed payment reports. So these are the ones under the financial report section. So these reports give information about payment transactions that your patrons make or people make to your library. These reports have always included notes staff enter when taking a payment. And the exciting thing is now they have been updated to also include any notes that were added to the charge transaction. So, let's say like I add a manual charge to the patron's account and I add a note. This note will now appear in the detailed payment report. So staff will see both the charge notes and the payment notes. So this is what it will look like, right? I will add a note when I'm adding a charge, and now the report will have the pay notes. So anything that's added when the payment is taken, and the charge note. So anything that is added when the charge is added. So hopefully this just gives, sometimes staff add notes for like context about what a payment is for, especially those manual charges. So hopefully this will just be able to give your staff, your business office, whoever uses the report, a little more context on the fees. And then finally, I just want to remind everyone we have a newish report, patrons opted out of overdues or bills. This report is available under the patron management section and it runs weekly. So basically this is a cleanup report. It lists patrons whose registration is set up so that they are excluded from overdue notices and or billing notices. So why is this a point we have to clean up? So with Polaris, items rely on posted notices in order to progress and automatically flip to lost. So if overdue and bill notices are never generated and posted, items will never make that flip to lost and these patrons will never be billed. So it's a really easy fix to clean up these patrons. All you have to do is go to the preferences section of the registration work form and deselect the checkbox next to overdue and or billing. So I sent out some communication about this last month through the Circ listserv. I think just about everyone has done the cleanup. So everyone's really awesome and on top of things. If there are any lingering patrons that are still excluded, those will be cleaned up through a bulk update the week of January 23rd. Even though we've done all this initial cleanup, the report will still run going forward. So it's more kind of like a maintenance report now. So it's a good idea to check on occasion, just in case there's any new patrons that pop up that do need to be cleaned up. So one thing I do want to mention, patrons are not able to make these modifications themselves on the Power Pack. These are settings that only staff can modify. So hopefully that means you really shouldn't see many patrons going forward. So those were the updates I had on reports. I'm going to pause just to see if there are any questions at the moment. Feel free to ask them or post them in chat if you do find you have any questions.
Miyako, I do have one.
Oh, yeah.
Let me get my thing down. Okay. So if this is, we had done this for you when you sent that out in December. However, our reports that we run every day, the overdues and the billing reports have not generated. Is this the reason why they haven't generated? They haven't generated in, I don't know if Brent, you want to chime in, but it's been quite some time that we haven't gotten anything, but we do the notices every day. But
Oh, running your print notices?
yeah,
It's been a couple weeks for us, and we don't know if this would maybe be impacting it one way or the other.
right.
Let's see. Deselecting these options should like prompt the notices to generate. I'm going to make a note of this after the meeting. I'll check.
Thank
To
you.
see. Yeah. Thanks for letting me know.
Yep.
I also have a quick question, Miyako.
Yeah.
So at Northbrook, the only ones, when I looked at our list, the only ones that we have are like our institutional cards for our Books on Wheels program. And we don't want those to get any kind of overdue notice. So it's okay for us to leave those as unchecked, right? Or leave those checked, right?
So we would like to keep this consistent through all patrons.
Mhm.
So my recommendation with your outreach cards or like in-house cards, we can use loan periods to give those patron codes extended values.
Okay.
And then if it's a situation where like you don't want, you have like a school and you'd rather that notice go to a staff member,
Mhm.
we can also like set up their account to maybe receive print notices, and that way, you know, the staff have the print notice and they can take action on that.
Okay.
Or like direct the notice email to the staff or library account.
Okay. Yeah, I will check with our adult services department and see which direction they prefer.
Okay,
All
perfect.
right, because we do that at Fremont, like all of our homebound patrons, we have the person in charge of homebound that they get the emails and stuff if things are overdue, so then they can go talk to the people.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to do it. And that way staff are aware of like what's overdue and what still needs to be taken account of. Okay. Well, let me know if any other questions come up for that. The next topic on my list is to discuss the circulation department distribution lists. We will be creating distribution lists for circulation. So I just want to take a few minutes today at the meeting to introduce what these are to the group and just kind of walk you through like what we'll be working on. I have a feeling a lot of you probably already work with distribution lists at your library. You may have something that's like reference at Fremont library.com, and the email gets sent to a certain set of librarians. But if you haven't before, basically distribution lists are emails that distribute messages to select staff at your library. So for example, I email a CCS distribution address, let's say it's CCScirc at ccslib.org. The email may be automatically sent to me, to Deborah, to Bob, instead of everyone on our staff. So distribution lists can be a more effective way to communicate or ask circulation related questions with the library rather than emailing individual staff. So for example, if someone has a question for CCScirc, but emails me directly, I may be on vacation and I may not see that email for a week, but using a distribution list, that message is sent to all relevant staff. So even though if I'm away from the office, Deborah and Bob will still get that message and be able to answer the question in a timely manner. Technical services departments have used CCS distribution lists for a number of years now. We realize that circulation also deals with matters that would make more sense to use a distribution list than to communicate one-on-one with a person. So things like, can you do a shelf check for an item, or touching base with the library on a damaged copy? So these are things that you may need assistance from another library on, but don't necessarily need to be addressed to a specific user. So, like I said, we are planning on getting these set up for circulation departments. In order to get these set up, CCS is going to start by reaching out to the circulation contacts at the library, and then just gather the email addresses that should be part of the distribution list for your location. We will then create the lists. We'll post distribution list information to the website, send out communication to circulation listserv, post to CCS News. So we will let everyone know when these are ready to go. And then going forward, libraries can use these to touch base with another library, and they will need to notify CCS if staff should be added or removed from a distribution list. So, you'll only want to make it part of your onboarding or offboarding staff process. Another thing we're planning on doing is updating help desk ticket fields just to make things easier, like adding new staff to lists. So those will be coming. You'll get more information about that. But I just wanted to let you know what's in the works. That was all I had for my part of the agenda. So I will stop sharing. And then I think Deborah has a few topics on her end.
Sure do. So I have 2 updates from governing board to share with the group. And for both of them, I will say that more information and specific action items for all of you will be coming in the next couple of weeks. But I did want to give this group a heads up so that you're prepared and in the loop for the discussions that happened earlier this week. So the first one I wanted to talk about was online payment options in the catalog. So back in 2018, which is kind of crazy, was 5 years ago at this point, governing board decided that all CCS libraries would use the same e-commerce provider for online payments made in the catalog. So the provider that we selected was Comprise and their SmartPay solution. So CCS has had this group subscription with Comprise for SmartPay for the past several years, and that cost is included in your CCS membership fees. So a few months ago, some libraries reported to CCS that they were losing a lot of money on payments made in the online catalog due to some excessive fees that were being charged by a second company called TSYS. So TSYS is what we call a processor. So they're this intermediary company that connects the payments made in Comprise with your bank account. So when a patron makes a payment through Comprise, puts in their credit card information, they pass that info to the processor, and then the processor then manages that money and puts it in your bank account. So we heard from libraries that you were like being charged more fees from TSIS than you were taking in money from your patrons. So it was either a wash, you were losing money, and that wasn't quite working for all of you. So Rebecca and Lauren, who is the director of the Elo Public Library and our CCS Governing Board Treasurer, they have been doing some digging into this. And at Governing Board on Wednesday, Governing Board voted to rescind that requirement that all CCS libraries use Comprise for online catalog payments. So moving forward, libraries will be able to individually decide, one, whether or not you would want to offer online payments, and then kind of two, those who want to continue on, who you would use for those online payments. So for those who do want to continue on with online payments, CCS is currently doing some research into like alternate, more cost-friendly options, including ePay, which is provided by the Illinois State Treasurer's Office. And some of us might have used ePay in the old days before Polaris. So what do we need from you today? Nothing. This is more of an update and an FYI, and Rebecca is going to send some more specific action items out to directors for next step, as well as some more like details on options that you have moving forward. So our Comprise contract runs through, I think, mid-February. It's like February 23rd or something like that. So Rebecca is working with Comprise to see if we can do this like limited month-to-month renewal for those libraries who want to continue on with Comprise, to like buy us some more time while we explore additional options. So we did offer a couple months back that libraries who wanted to could remove that online payment link from your PowerPack catalog. So that is still an option if you haven't done that already and you want to stop accepting payments through the catalog. So for those of you who do want to continue on with accepting those funds through SmartPay, we're definitely going to leave it up. And again, we'll share out more information in the next couple of weeks with your directors. I would also just want to add one more little point of clarification. So this doesn't impact any point of sale or self-check payments that you currently have. All of you have separate contracts for those payment options. So CCS only facilitates the catalog online payment portal through Comprise's SmartPay. So you might have some separate contracts for your self-checks, and this wouldn't impact those services at all. So I'm happy to take any questions with the caveat that there is still some research and planning that's going to be happening. So I might not have all the answers, but would love to hear any questions that you have right now.
Deborah, are there libraries who don't take online payments?
We do have a couple. So it was kind of a requirement, right? That you had to offer online payments and that we all used SmartPay to accept those payments. There have been a couple libraries who have chosen to take them down over the past couple months. I don't know, anyone here take Linda Algonquin, Carrie, I think.
We haven't taken it down yet, but there is talk because we're one of those people that are spending so much money to TSIS that it's, yeah, we're discussing it anyway.
Yeah, and again, we don't like facilitate that contract between TSIS.
Right.
We do the Comprise contract. You all have sort of a separate contract with TSIS, but you need to have that like middle company manage those in order to use Comprise. So even though they're the problem, we've had some trouble getting them to talk to us and like negotiate down fees. And again, like Belinda said, for some libraries, maybe not all, they're really just eating into any money that you might make through those online payments.
So once the contract is up with Comprise in February, will, if the libraries choose to do nothing, will we automatically like get shifted over to the possibility of ePay?
I do not think anyone would get automatically moved to a different payment option. And again, Rebecca, I mentioned, is still gathering some information on costs, etc. So I think currently the plan is like we'll try to get some sort of month by month or temporary extension to our Comprise contract so that we can kind of get more time to figure out what potential next steps might be for libraries, whether that is, you know, continuing on with sort of a opt-in Comprise subscription or offering a different solution like ePay. So we haven't quite figured out all of those details and potential paths forward, but I would say probably in the next 2 weeks, more information on those next steps will be sent out to directors and
Okay.
possibly CERC as well.
And I have one other question. So say we're all using different providers. And one of our patrons logs on through Indian Trails website and we're using two different what will they see? Will they see what service we're using or what service? I'm just thinking of it from the patron perspective. Is it going to get confusing for them? I don't know.
Yeah, and I guess my answer is I don't know quite what it would,
Okay.
would look like depending on who or what options we do decide to pursue moving forward. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. So I'll add it to our list to make sure that we can share that out with all of you.
Okay, thanks, Deborah.
Yeah. We did have a demo with Pinnacle. They're another Polaris Library Consortia like in the Joliet area. They use ePay and they have it integrated with PowerPack in kind of a different way than we have Comprise set up. So we did have a demo to see what that looks like. Again, I'm not sure if ePay is the option that, you know, we'll kind of offer to libraries moving forward. Still a lot of things to work out. So good question. I'll pass it on to Rebecca so that we can start doing some more digging into that. Michelle?
I have a follow-up on what Anne was just talking about. If somebody logs in to the PowerPack with their barcode, does it automatically take them to the home? No, it doesn't take them to their home library.
No. So what happens right now with Comprise and SmartPay, if they are in the Displays catalog and click the Pay Online link, it will take them to the Displays SmartPay interface, and those funds or any payments made there go to Displays, not the patrons library, not the items library. It would go to Displays. So the same thing as if they walked into your library and made a payment at the desk, you keep those funds and they're not sent on to anyone else.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions? Chat. Okay. All right. So again, we don't need anything from you today. You don't have to decide anything today. This is just more of a want to let everybody stay in the loop. A change is probably going to be coming, but we have some work to do to dig into it over the next couple weeks, but more information will be coming your way very soon. And I'm sorry to all of you that TSIS is taking all of your money. All right, so then I had one more update for the team on notices. Another exciting slash, I don't want to say depressing update, but man, notices have really been kicking our butts recently. So as you all know, since the fall, we have seen this uptick in the amount of undeliverable emails and bounce backs that we have received due to email and text providers kind of tightening their spam and security filters, which is like a good thing, right? I don't like getting a lot of text spam messages or email spam messages, but unfortunately, our notice emails have on occasion gotten caught up in these filters. So to help reduce the risk that our notices get identified as spam, Innovative has sent us some best practices for preventing this. One of them is recommending that all email notices are valid email inboxes, so that email bounce backs can be tracked, monitored, and invalid emails and text message carriers removed from patron accounts. So ongoing bounce backs can cause an email server's reputation to decrease, which could then increase the chance that the email server is blacklisted or identified as spam. So right now, most CCS libraries, 23 of us, currently use no reply at ccslib.org to deliver patron email addresses. So this is not a valid inbox. We can't track or monitor undeliverable emails and bounce backs, which means we can't fix patron accounts that have invalid emails. So based on this recommendation from IIII, we plan to transition all of our libraries currently using no reply at ccslib.org to valid email addresses for email and text notices. So we hope to have this work done by March 1st. So we still have a month and a half. And if we need to, we'll flex that date backwards. So by March 1, we are going to ask all of the libraries currently using no reply to provide a valid email address to be used for notices. So library staff will then monitor those undeliverable emails and remove invalid email addresses from patron accounts, as well as incorrect text message carriers. So we're currently working on best practices and guidelines for doing this. There are a handful of other libraries that already use their own email address to deliver notices. So thank you to the 5 of you. I have sent out some sample best practices and procedures to them to kind of give some feedback, tweak the procedures so that when it comes time to manage those bounce backs, we all have kind of steps that we can follow to manage that work. So if for some reason your library is not able to provide an email address to use for notices, CCS has set up another email address, notices@ccslib.org, that we will switch your notice emails to, and then CCS staff will manage the work involved in fixing patron accounts. Our preference is, however, that you would provide your own email address tied to your own domain. That way you can be involved in that work and patron cleanup, and that your patrons see the email coming from your library instead of CCS. So again, I have nothing I need you to do right after this meeting. We'll be sending out an official communication, I think probably in next week's CCS news, and I'll also send a note to the CERC and IT listers as well. And that communication will include like the steps and the things that we need you to do. There's going to be some work probably done by your IT department to authorize any email address you set up to allow Polaris to send notices on your behalf. So there's a little bit of config that has to happen, kind of like beyond me, but IT people will know, and we'll send some directions for how to complete that step of the process. Any questions? Linda.
Sarah and I talked a little bit about this yesterday. So my question is, do you have a preference? We're one of the 23, so, and I'm great with getting those emails directly sent to us, but is there going to be like a standard email address you want us to use, or as long as it has aapld.org in there, it doesn't really matter?
Yeah, I don't think it matters. I don't think we have like, it doesn't have to be notices at AAPL.
Right.
You know, it can be whatever you'd like it to be.
Okay, great. Thanks.
And Deborah, do you know, because I had this conversation as well with our tech person, and we've had issues with being blacklisted and she has concerns about that. So are these emails going to go out through us or through, yeah, you know the question.
Yeah, so the emails will continue to be sent through Polaris's hosted email servers. So they're not like being sent through you. However, what needs to be done is there is a step that I referenced earlier where in your email settings, you will essentially have to authorize Innovative to send those emails on your behalf. And that's a key piece of the setup that, again, we'll send more specific directions on. So Innovative is still managing like the creation of the emails, the sending of the emails. It will be sent from your email address, but like that all happens on their end. What you will do is you'll need to check sort of that email inbox and then monitor the bounce back messages.
Got it. Great, thank you.
And then I know there's a couple libraries here that already manage this work. I did talk to Athena at Niles to kind of gauge how many do you get a day? Is it like 100 or is it, 0? And she says she gets about 1 to 4 every day. So it's really not a massive amount of undeliverable messages. CCS has switched reciprocal patrons to this notices at ccslib.org email, just so we can kind of get a good idea of what you all can expect. And I think the average number a day we've gotten was 7. I think this is probably higher than it would be if we were doing ongoing maintenance on patron accounts. This is like, 5 years of never looking at undeliverable emails. So I think it's a little higher than maybe we would expect once we get sort of this initial batch of patron accounts with incorrect emails fixed up. So Michelle, I don't know, you're here, you guys manage your own. Do you have a sense of how many emails you would get a day that bounce back?
I don't, but I have access to the mailbox. So if I can look at it and let you know in a couple minutes.
No need to do that.
I do have one person who's part-time. She's 20 hours a week that manages this, and she's able, like when she's on the desk, she's able to manage it. It's not so many that she's like got backlog, and I think the worst part of the whole thing is that it's really hard. I'm seriously impressed with what you guys created for the helpful documentation that you let us see, because it's like, oh, this email, well, it says the person has, their boxes blocked because it's overflowing. And then there's one that it's like, oh, it couldn't go through, it was invalid, it was this. There's just like all these goofy options of like what is wrong here. So it's kind of like detective work. It's little puzzles. And sometimes we have like one patron that we get like an undeliverable for her several times a week, but she's one of our friends, and she gets the emails. So I'm not sure why she's always getting, we're always seeing that there's an undeliverable. So there's like some goofy stuff, and I don't know, some of it, it's like, okay, this is happening. You can contact the patron. Hey, did you actually get this? No. Do we have the right thing? The right information? Yes. Okay. It might just be a glitchy service. I don't know. So you can't be too like, oh my God, this has to be perfect. We have to fix this. Everything, because there is a lot of like, did this really go through? Did this not go through? And some of it is obvious. Like you'll see, oh my gosh, that's the email address is clearly spelled wrong or something. But yeah, it's like detective work. So
Yeah, well, it seems like we're getting a lot of text messaging bounce backs, and it's mainly with the additional text message is where, and I'm just like, if they're getting an email and this is the additional, I really don't do anything. I don't know if that's an issue or something with, I've just been looking. And then, yeah, normally if it's an email address, it's probably spelled wrong or something. So, usually I'll put a note in there for that the email bounced or whatever, so that the next time the person comes in, we can just verify the email with them. So that's kind of what we do.
Yeah, and as Michelle noted, there's lots of different reasons why emails could bounce back. Because because in monitoring these for notices at CCS Live, I was like, wow, every single message is different. This is cool. So it is really hard to come up with a set of procedures that can like cover every single scenario. As Michelle mentioned, you know, sometimes messages are like temporarily throttled and you'll get a bounce back, but it will end up going through to the patron eventually. So we know there's lots of nuances and we can't 100% know whether the like it's going through or it's not. But this is really just, you know, a list of best practices and like guidelines, and then knowing you will need to probably use your judgment in some of these scenarios of which path to take. So again, we'll be sending out some more official communication and documentation with next steps and specific action items. Right now, it sounds like some of you have already talked about this with your directors. So watch for an update and some directions on what to do next coming your way, probably in next week's newsletter.
Deborah, before we move on, can I ask, I'm assuming these bounce notices are separate than that you would get from like the self checks. The ones that I see are like the emailed receipt fails and password reset fails. So putting everything together, it's like, no, we don't get like failed hold notices. Even though I check production, like when I did the phone calls fail, I also check emails and I never come across email addresses saying that they failed. Is that because CCS has been monitoring it in the background? I guess I asked two different questions, but the first question being, will the emails that are generated through like the self checks or reset password be lumped in with this, or are those still going to be separate?
I think the answer is they could be if you use the same email address for receipts and notices. So what's happening probably right now is you're using a Fox River Valley email address for your e-receipts and for your self-checks. And then you're using noreply@ccslive.org for notices. So I think it would be up to you if you want to use the same email address for both of those, or if you would want to have a separate one just for notices. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it absolutely does. Because when you started talking, it's like, yeah, we do this. It's like, no, we don't do this. We get something totally separate. And is to your best judgment, is there any downside to utilizing the email address that is our main correspondence for patrons? Or would you recommend having something separate just for these failed notifications?
That's a good question. Well, I will say that when we update the email address for notices, patrons will reply to them. So if you want to have all of the patron communication go to the same email, you might want to use the one you already use, whether it's like Cirque at Fox River Valley. It just will be a little more cluttered on a day-to-day basis because you will get, you know, these undeliverable notices as well. So your inbox might not be as tidy as you would want it to be with only patron communications that were direct communication with patrons. But again, 100% patrons are replying to these because I have been going through them for CCSB patrons. And sometimes it's like, thank you. And sometimes it's like, I returned this. So you might want to have everything in the same place so you don't have to look at two inboxes. And then, sorry, do you have a follow-up, Carrie, on that?
Just thanking you. Nope, that was helpful.
And then you had a second question and my brain is fried. So now can someone remind me what the second part of that question was?
I think I asked when I do like the failed deliverable for emails, I do that in conjunction with like the failed phone calls. But I've never seen anything. And so I never explored further. It's like, why is that? But why is that, I guess?
Yeah, so that, and maybe you can correct me if I'm explaining this wrong. So that report is identifying like emails that can't even like get off the Polaris server because, you know, it's like at Gmail instead of at gmail.com. Like it's not a valid email address, or it's entered in a way that Polaris recognizes and can say like, hey, this isn't right. What that report doesn't do is monitor the emails that come back after being sent off the Polaris email servers. So Polaris isn't smart enough to know like, oh, it got sent back, or, you know, never reached the inbox after we sent it off into the e-universe. And so what the undeliverable notices do is it's that confirmation of like, hey, the recipient's email inbox rejected it for some reason. And as Michelle mentioned, it could be, it was full, it was like, doesn't exist, it was temporarily throttled and not sent. So that's why you see that email delivery failure report often has nothing in it, because the emails are leaving and it's not monitoring what happens once they get out into the email provider inbox world.
Okay, that makes sense. Yes.
Yeah, Michelle.
Can I ask a follow-up? And Deborah, I apologize because I actually asked you this in an email I sent right before I left last night, so I don't even know if you've seen it. So like you were just saying, Polaris is not smart enough to know that the message was sent out, but it failed. So when we look at a patron's notices in their account, is Polaris smart enough to know what, like, so we see, oh, look, an auto renewal email was sent out yesterday. If it says that, do we know that they received it, or is it the same kind of, it just, we know it was sent? So
Correct.
if we have an undeliverable, that kind of trumps the fact that it says that it was sent out. It doesn't necessarily mean they got it.
Right. So when you see that in the patron's notice history, when you see a notice was posted, it's possible you could see, hey, this notice was posted, it was sent off, left the Polaris email servers, but you could still get an undeliverable email sent because, hey, once it was sent off, it was rejected and came back to you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. So you can take the notice history with a little bit of grain of salt. It's really great, like, to know that, you know, Polaris generated the notice, but it won't tell you again that for whatever reason, the inbox might have rejected it, or the provider. Notices are so squishy. They are very confusing and nebulous. So again, I will emphasize that when we send out these procedures, they're best practices. They may not cover every single scenario you might encounter. There may be weird situations where you continue to get undeliverable emails, but the patron always comes to pick up their holds because they got them somehow. It's kind of impossible for us to know what's happening on the end of the patron. So we're really just going to give you these best practices, and then you're all very smart, you're all experts. You know, there will be some nuances when it comes to managing it, but we'll all do a great job. So next week, look for some more communication about this. Feel free to start having some chats internally. You don't have to open a ticket today with the replacement notice email. We'll be working with you all over the next month and a half to get everything set up. All right, well then, Carrie, I will pop it back over to you.
Excellent. Thank you, Deborah. And it doesn't look like we have any old business. So moving on to new business, and I'm up first. Got a couple of new business items and then one in the parking lot. So I'm having the discussion with my assistant director about responsibility to our taxpayers about getting money back for patrons who have hundreds, if not thousands of dollars of fines due to us. And so I was just curious if any libraries here have a specified threshold before you involve the police. It's a little heavy, but I also understand we have a report that our assistant director ran, and if I can find it. We have 9 patrons with over $1,000 in charges, whether it was malicious or not. That's a lot though. So I just wanted to open up that question for folks. If you go that far and get the police involved.
Since I've been here, I did get the police involved in one incident. And it was a reciprocal patron who walked off with a whole bunch of our video games and then sold them. But crazy thing, he came and paid for them in cash. So it was kind of a crazy story, but it was right kind of when I first started. So I felt pretty proud of that. I got like $1,400 back for the library. But then I changed our policy of how many video games we will loan to people. So, yeah. But that was just kind of a one-off because.
And I feel like the majority of the ones that have such large outstanding fines are truly just victims of bad circumstance. They checked out books for their family and moved. There's really only 2 on here that are what I would consider malicious. One is an identical scenario, and it was video games, and it was during COVID when we were doing curbside. And then the other one is just a problem patron. So yeah, it's isolated, but we feel compelled to not just kind of let it slide either, because it is a lot. Does anybody else have, if not specific examples, then I don't know, recommendations, because we're just trying to brainstorm this. What seems like enough is enough, kind of.
We have a patron who took out a bunch of books that she found objectionable and has refused to bring them back. And there seems to be half the board wants them to call in a lawyer and go after it, and the other half wants to argue it some more. So I think she's just going to keep them until she dies, and then the kids will probably return them, as it usually goes. But yeah, it's nothing close to the costs that you're talking about. I suspect if it were that high, considering how serious some of them feel about this, it would be a board thing with us, whether the board feels so that it's not just the circ manager coming after somebody. It's the board going, yeah, this one we're going to make an example of. I don't know. But ours would definitely be a board issued thing, because they generally, it's kind of like you say, the person's moved and you're like, they got packed up in the boxes and they're gone. Are we going to pursue it or not? And they generally don't. So that's been my experience here.
And our current approach to this is it wouldn't be like we're calling officers in the expectation. It wouldn't, it's more just, I hate to be like a scare tactic, but it kind of truly is. It's like, come on, you owe us. It's over the cost of what would be considered shoplifting. I mean, for that kind of comparison. But a little bit of me is like, I don't want folks to think of us like that either. Like,
I know it's frustrating because, yeah, this lady just doesn't, the president of the board has taken her on a long walk and chit-chatted with her about it. Well, she doesn't trust other parents to not give these books to their children. It's hard to argue with people. So I think it's a tough call, but yeah, a big hunk of our board is like, not so much the police, but call a lawyer and tell them that they're going to be pressed for the money. That seems to be the direction that our board, I think, would go if they felt compelled to do it. But like I said, ours is like 11 books, so it's not anywhere near that kind of cost. But yeah, a large cost. I can understand why people, especially people who do return their books or pay for them when they lose them, are going to be a little annoyed he's or she is allowed to just do whatever they like. But yeah, I'd give it to the board and ask them what they think should be done, since it's because it would be an expense for you guys to do it.
Well, one of the things that we do is we send a felony letter to them. If anything over $300, we will send, I don't know if you're doing that. I mean, it actually is a letter about library theft. Just to maybe like say, this is considered a felony or whatever. And we just, we send a letter that we've unsuccessfully tried to get our materials back, and, we let them know how much they've been billed. Sometimes it works, sometimes, most of the time it doesn't, but it's something else to send to them before you would, I guess, contact the police, but
That was gonna be my follow-up question. Is that the kind of the end of the conversation, then sending them this like, hey, we're not nice anymore,
Mhm.
versus getting police involvement too?
yeah,
I should also-
we had one lady that we actually did, we kind of knew she was did this a lot. And she just kept a lot of materials, and it was like all stuff from other libraries. So we did get, the director involved in it. He sent a certified letter, and then, yeah, we did actually send the police to her house. And she brought the stuff back, and she's, still coming here. So that was just a one-off, just because we knew this person and figured, she had some mental health problems. So we knew this stuff was at her house, and yeah.
Yeah, and I should also point out, we have blocked her. She cannot check out anymore. She's not happy. She comes in periodically and gives it another go. But yeah, we have been adamant that until these items are returned or paid for, you cannot check out. I suspect she's just sending family members in or something to check out for her. But as long as it's making it annoying for her, like it's annoying for us, it works out for me. But I feel for you.
I don't know. Go ahead, Michelle. I'm sorry. I didn't know if I was going to interrupt someone. Go ahead.
Oh, no worries. I just wanted to say that, so we haven't done the police thing, except we did have a video game thing and had to change our limit of video games many years ago. But something that we do kind of on the other side of this, instead of sending the scary message, the same person who does all of our undeliverable emails also contacts patrons who owe more than $100 in lost items. And she contacts them and says, hi, I know you've received this bill for blah, blah, blah. If you return all of these materials in good condition, we're going to forgive everything, all the money. And for 6 months, I kept track of how much money we were receiving back from her doing this. And we were getting $1,200 worth of materials back, $1,400 worth of materials back. Now, it is staff time, and it is, but I felt like it's, since we don't have fines anymore, and there's not a, who cares? Like, I'm just going to disappear and whatever. But if you say to people, we want you to come back, we'd love to see, whatever, I can send you the template. It has worked a lot. We still have people, of course, that have not returned anything, just like Karen has stuff that people aren't returning, even with the nasty letter. So you could try the nice, she emails if they have an email, she calls if there's, that's the last thing. People are usually embarrassed or like, oh my God, or they go and return it in the book drop so they don't have to see a person. But then all the stuff we get, we remove from their accounts. So, because we just want our stuff back, right? Like, that's the point.
And Michelle, does it matter how, well, obviously you want to act fast, but is there a window of time for when your staff member sends that letter after it's been lost for X months?
Yeah, so Bob is lovely, and I have asked for him to create an account, a monthly report that says anything that people check, like people came here and checked out, and they things are more than 3 months overdue, I think was my, over 3 months or something like that. And then she runs, like, so I give her the report every month, and she contacts the people, and then she keeps track. And then the next month, if she already contacted these people, she will contact them a second time. And so she contacts everybody twice. And like I said, in the 6 months I was doing it, we received $1,000 or more back of those specific items. Yeah, because obviously the newer the problem is, right, the better chances you're going to get stuff back. But there's been times where, just this morning, I actually had received a phone call while we were in this meeting. Somebody told me, patron X, they just returned. They have had things out that have been marked lost since February of 21. I have had actual conversations with this person. He had checked out entire runs of manga and it was over $350 worth of stuff. He's been using his daughter's card at all of your libraries, especially Niles, using her card and checking stuff out. And one day he walked in, I didn't know what he looked like, and there was a problem. So a coworker calls me over and I was like, oh, Mr. I was like, I'm Michelle. He was nervous as can be, but guess what? This morning, all of the stuff came back. So sometimes the nice, we'll forgive everything works too.
And that was going to be my final question for patrons who have been directly contacted for this scenario. Do you extend that like forgiveness window of like, no, these have already been deleted, but because we reached out and we still will take these items back? Obviously, you took back these items that were now 2 years overdue, essentially.
Swap them around.
We are overly generous, and we forgive. Like, that guy's not, in fact, that's why my coworker called. She's like, it says here not to waive anything. And I said, well, I meant I didn't want anybody to like give this guy a deal because this had been a thing for so long, but he returned them all. They're all in good condition. They were lost in the system. Obviously, the cataloger is going to add it back into the system. And John, I see you on there, and and it'll go back to the collection. Some libraries can't probably afford to do stuff like that because, you know, maybe they've already repurchased whatever, but we want people to use the library, and we're fortunate enough to have a budget that's healthy with materials, so I'm able to do that.
Very cool. You will absolutely see an email from me, at least for that template. Kim, go for it.
Yeah. So I apologize if I lose you, but one of the things I noticed, I had a patron she and her daughter had $4,400 worth of lost material. The thing was, they checked it out at Winnetka, and when they returned it to Wilmette, it didn't fall off their account. So I went item by item and had to manually waive because of the return at our library versus the return at the home library it was checked out at. So once I saw how many items had been returned, it brought the bill down to $200. So it was a phone call to her. I knew her very well, and they had moved to Michigan. They traveled back and forth, and they just lost track of it. And her husband brought the material back, but I had to manually look very often for those materials and then I got in touch with Courtney at Winnetka to let her know, hey, don't delete these items just yet, so we can make sure it makes it easier for the catalogers. I think that's one of the things, just verifying, because it has happened quite often where a patron said, I returned it. It says it's available in the catalog, but yet the bill is still there.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
No, that was just.
Sorry. Real quick, what's the name of the report that Bob runs for you?
Yeah, so I was just starting to respond to Kim's question. It's not one of the ones that's on the reports for everyone, because I had asked him to specifically create it for me. But I can tell you that it is, hold on, I'm just pulling it up. It's called Patrons with an Account Balance, and it's all patrons that I just request things that have been checked out here, not at other locations. It says it lists patrons with the oldest bill for items checked out at Displays, posted after July, for instance. So it is a 6 month. He does it 6 months later, and it lists the patron and every item they have, and their total account balance. So I can see that, oh, look, you owe $400 or you owe $300. There's like some on here that, you know, it's a lot. So I think poor Bob, he's so lovely, but since he already has, you know, figured this out for me, I'm sure that he can do the same for other libraries. But it was important that I learned that not to do this for, because originally I was doing it for just our items that were long overdue. And then other library, it was like, it was checked out at another library. And then I didn't realize, like, I was, you know, the patron never showed up at displays. And then meanwhile, we're like, hey, hi, return your stuff, we'll forgive it. And then other libraries like, whoa, what are you doing? And I was like, oh, I didn't think about that, sorry. So now it's just, regardless of what their home library is, if they check out here, it's those things.
And Carrie, I would say another resource for you all and for your director, and maybe they've already done this. Rails has a like pretty active directors listserv, and these are like the kind of questions that are sent to that listserv. So if they're looking for maybe like policies or procedures, I think that would be another great resource to ask. I don't know if they've already reached out maybe to other directors, but it's like Rails directors on this listserv, they often send kind of like, hey, do you have a procedure or a best practice for XYZ? So that might be another really great group to maybe get some feedback from.
Yeah, I'll double check with our assistant director to see if she's reached out regarding this. And Michelle, to your point for like the report that Bob put together, I assume that would be a pretty easy one to do in Simply Reports. I assume it's a Simply Report anyway.
It might be.
Yeah, but no, he did the grunt work for you. But because we do have those tabs in Simply Reports, I'm assuming that's where my director got this information. And Lori, are you meaning the template for the report or the letter that Michelle mentioned?
I'll send it on the listserv, because
Appreciate
and then
it.
you guys can do with it what you will.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I appreciate everyone's input on this. This has been a lot of information that I could take back to our assistant director and probably ultimately our director, just to kind of get some policies started on this and maybe get some of those items back. All right, so we'll move on to Tori with build lost materials, relevant and kind of related.
Yeah, I know. I noticed that. No, we didn't have it that specifically laid out. And so we had a patron who, the Ever Classic, there's always someone who has to push the rule. So if somebody has been billed for a material that's long gone, but how long after they pay for it, or don't pay for it, but after the billing date, how long is it before they no longer can get a refund or they can no longer return the item without being charged? Because it seems to me, it sounds like a lot of libraries have like a 6-month or a year kind of cutoff point, because we had somebody arguing the point that we weren't specific enough. So we had already purchased the other material. So now we have 2 copies of something we only wanted 1 of. So I'm just trying to see what other libraries like cutoff point. Is there a point when a person can no longer return an item for refunds or for forgiveness if they haven't paid? Thank you, Carrie. I see in the note there. So I'm just looking for what general rules are, just to see, so we're kind of in line with everybody else in the area. Thank you.
If anybody wants to chime in via voice, you're welcome to, but folks are throwing it in the chat and that might help Tori get a nice little list of things.
Yeah, I'm loving it. It's a nice little organized list. It's beautiful. All of you are so fast.
While those are coming in, we did
Thank
have,
you, everyone.
yeah, we did have one thing for the parking lot.
I'm sorry, I had a
Oh, yeah,
question about
Anastasia.
this. For the libraries that do delete the items for lost and unpaid, what report are you using? Because we are trying to look into this at Park Ridge, and I was having a little hard time because all of the statuses are the same as billed.
So I'll jump in first. I've created a Simply report specifically to weed out items that are marked as withdrawn and marked as final. Because that way I know that the item record has been finalized and completed. It's not whatever the non-deleted one is. And it's something that got marked as withdrawn naturally, like from a lost item, versus someone doing a weeding report and sending their record set to our cataloging department. And it just cleans up everything that might
Is that for
naturally.
loss? I'm sorry, Carrie, is that for
Yeah.
loss and paid or loss and unpaid?
We have it set up for both
Oh,
right
okay.
now. It's just anything that's been marked lost as the year and then rolled over to withdrawn after that.
Okay, because we have a procedure for lost and paid items and we delete them a month after they're paid. Just because they're not eligible for refund any longer. But I would like to do a procedure where, like, after 6 months or a year, if it's lost and unpaid, I can run a report and delete them from the system or withdraw them. But I haven't really been able to figure out like an easy way to do 2 separate reports. Basically, to simplify, I would like a lost and paid report and a lost and unpaid report.
Anastasia, there is a report in web reports, the monthly lost and missing and bindery / damaged report. One, like there's many tabs on that report, and the very final tab, so it's kind of hidden. But the very final tab is a lost or damaged but not paid. So lost and unpaid items would be on there. And it does give, I'm just looking at the report right now. It does post the date that the item was billed. So you could like do some Excel sort to see, like what things are older.
Oh, so
versus
is this
more
just
recent.
one big list? It's not like a time frame, right?
Right.
Okay. Is there a way to do in simple reports though? Because then you can withdraw things like a bulk withdrawal.
Would you be able to upload that tab to a record set and do a bulk
Oh yeah, it's a
withdrawal?
good idea. Yeah.
Good. Yeah, because it has the item.
It does have the barcode, yeah.
I always have to pause with Simply reports and like
I
think
know.
about loss versus paid and loss versus unpaid.
Yeah, it's called, I have it as a one of my favorites, the monthly lost and missing and binary damage.
Yeah. How, okay. I can't believe I've never seen this because I use this report every month. So
It truly is at the very end.
Yeah,
and If you have any scroll.
there's the lost damage.
yeah, I see it
items,
now. I have it up.
anyway.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so I have gone in there a couple of times when I had to find something.
Okay.
So that's been helpful. Yeah, I would imagine you're all so patient. I get frustrated trying to figure out whenever I do a report, I'm always missing something I think I need. I never get it quite right. So yeah, I'm always trying to troll these reports for information so I don't have to create one on my own.
Anastasia, I have a question for you. I think I was always under the assumption that like libraries deleted lost items at the same time frame, regardless of whether it was paid for by the patron or unpaid by the patron. So it sounds like, Anastasia, maybe you keep, right now you delete lost items that are paid for within a month of the patron paying for it. So even if they come in and pay like 6 months later, you kind of keep the lost item until it's paid for. Can you walk me through one more time kind of what you do now?
Sure. So right now we really only clean up lost and paid items.
Okay.
And we do it a month after it's paid for because they're eligible for refund within 30 days of returning the item at our library. But I wouldn't want to delete items that are lost and unpaid after 30 days. I want it to be, give them an opportunity to come in and pay for it like 6 months or a year. Maybe that's too long, but so I kind of need 2 reports because it's not gonna be the same time frame that'd be withdrawing materials. But it sounds like this, I could potentially do something with this, so that's helpful.
So if a patron at 6 months comes in and has a lost item on their account, would you offer a refund if they gave the item back to you?
So if they didn't pay for it, we would just check it and take the bill off their account. Yep. But yeah, there's bills on here from like 1999, I see now. So we need to clean it up.
Yeah, that's why I was kind of asking, because it sounds like it kind of varies. And when I looked at what we had on the website and the wording, I'm like, yeah, it's not terribly clear. Because if somebody's lost, is kept a Patterson or something that's popular, they're going to go ahead and order that one right away. They're not going to wait to find out if the person's going to get around. I mean, they give them a short period of time.
Right.
You've got a hold list. They got to keep moving.
Right. And that's another issue too, is we don't know really then what's billed and missing that could be new and popular because no one's really checking on it. So that's why I wanted to come up with a report, where. So I guess my next question would be for libraries. When do you notify the librarians that these items are on this list? And do you delete them at the same time, or do you give like a grace period? Like you send the list to the librarian, 3 weeks after it's on this list, then you delete it 3 months later from the system, hoping they'll return it. I don't know if that makes sense, but.
So ours is, because we don't offer refunds, ours is pretty cut and dry. I do the monthly lost and missing report for our selectors, and I'm a selector too. I generally go in a little pessimistic. If it's something that is really hot, I'll automatically order another copy. If we get it back, cool, we got it back, whatever. But it gives the selectors the ability to just go right out of the gate and say like, oh, well, we need to replace this versus, that was a 12-year-old book. If it comes back, cool. If it doesn't,
right,
whatever. But I guess that is up to the individual selector, how diligent they want to be on reordering copies.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question about something Anastasia said that I'm having a kind of like a moral dilemma on. And if I break out again, I apologize. I'll email it to the group. So we do 6 months, patron can pay for the item, but after a year, we delete the item. So I feel like the patron who paid is getting the short end of the stick because we won't refund them after 6 months. But yet the patron who returned it 8 months later, didn't pay for it, gets it wiped clear from their account and can just use it. I'm just wondering, is this just the part of being libraries and this is what we do? Or is there an alternative solution? I mean, do I delete everything at 6 months then so no one can get anything? Just trying to gauge it because I love that material back. I really would, but I'm not going to refund you. Am I making myself kind of clear a little bit?
That's a really good point, Kim. I never really thought of it that way, to be honest.
Yeah, the patron who paid, I feel like is getting short. Like that's not fair. So that's why I'm kind of figuring out what to do. And like, I'm all grateful for the money, but you did your due diligence. You paid it so you could use your card, but then there's the person who just dropped it in the book drop and now they're
right. So you get a lot of refund requests at your library, Kim? Because we get a lot. It's just.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
And we do a cash check, or we send them a check in our.
We do too, yeah.
Yeah, our finance department is getting frustrated because people are not cashing the check.
Right, us too.
I know Mark's on the call and we get on average, I'd say we have a box because we keep things in triplicate. There's at least on a monthly basis, people who pay about 50 to 60 items for lost material. And then we refund probably maybe on a monthly basis, maybe 20, and that's only physically paid in the library. That's not paid online.
Yeah, see, that's why I was wondering about where the cutoffs get, because it does affect a lot of different how it gets handled,
Yeah,
who
that's
gets the deal, who gets forgiven, who doesn't. It can get very complicated. But I mean, I've seen a lot of patrons where the item has been marked as deleted, so there's no barcode number and things like that, but you can still see what the title is, which is helpful. Because most patrons will remember it then. But yeah, it's a little, that's why I was kind of wondering what other people, we've always had the policy that once you paid for it, no refund, because of all the people coming. They'll pay for it so they can have access to their account. Then they go take a good look for the book and find it 2 weeks later. So we've done all this processing just to let them have access to their account.
And deleted items, I will waive, because I feel like that's still, you brought back the material, something in your life happened, you found it finally. I don't want you to pay for something you're handing to me that's in great condition. You know, that's just, I don't know, good business. You're handing me something and now I'm charging you $26.95, the cost of the book that we paid when you can buy it on Amazon for $11.99. You know, I just don't know. Yes, Jen, I'm looking at Jen because Jen I learned about their policy on lost material and I kind of like it. And maybe she can speak to that, but I know that technical services department is also talking about this because that's a lot of work for them to catalog and do everything again. So I don't know. I just thank you for listening.
You know, I would say too, just from a how we're handling sort of perspective, like, so when I started, we had that same exact situation last year where we had people, we were just mailing out checks and they were like staying uncashed and things like that. And our business manager kind of charged us with thinking about like, how can we change this? And one of the things that, you know, actually it was Donna that brought this up, was we had gone to having fewer notices for a long time. And we turned on some of the notices again, just for the material recovery portion. And that has cut down. I mean, we have like a form that I sign before it goes upstairs, and I was signing maybe 10 a month of like refunding people for exactly what you said. They found it, it's within our, you know, policy, whatever. Now I probably sign 1, maybe 2. So actually being a little bit more annoying, and it's it's kind of like putting that title like back in front of their faces again. But one of the things I pushed back on our business office about was, well, are you calling people and telling them that a check is coming? Like that was the other part of it. I had even offered for circulation to take the responsibility of contacting those patrons so they knew, but we wanted to try a passive approach first that wasn't going to take up too much staff time. But yeah, I mean, even right now we're working with a situation where we have a couple who has uncoupled, and person A is keeping the material because they want to stick it to person B. And it's just like, those things do happen, even though they're few and far between. And it's like,
Oh, no. Oh, Jen, thank you for saying so. I look at people, I'm like, they're going, why? He's my husband. Yeah, for now. In 3 months, you're going to be telling me how he has your books. I have it all the time. People trying to stick it to their
it's true. And
spouse with a library card.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
it's hard. It's like hard for us to have, you know, we have just decided, like, one of the things that we've started with is rely on your empathy more than you rely on your policy. And I don't know what's happening in your conscious uncoupling or whatever the heck we're going to call it, but I'm going to tell you this right now. We want it back. We want the good PR, and we will, you know, we really, I think Northbrook should get a lot of credit. It happened before I was there, but you know, thinking flexibly about how we can provide services, and the pandemic beginning forced us to do that. And this is something where it's really kind of still happening and is still good. You know, like I was thinking about, can we offer to pick the books up? I mean, how much of it is a transportation issue for people as well? So, I mean, and we don't do that yet, but it's like some of those things we talk about in the background is how do we make it easier to get those materials back so other patrons can use them?
I just wanted to chime in. I know that it's been a back and forth with how different libraries deal with items that haven't not been returned after 6 months or so. I had a situation where a patron returned a book back after a year, and I don't remember which library it was, but it was deleted. So the patron did return the item back. I did tell her that she would have to pay for the item because the item wasn't, you know, it was off the card. So that's still the thing, right? If another library deletes it, the patron has to pay for the item because the library doesn't want the item anymore because it's been deleted from the record.
Did this happened recently, Gabriella?
It did happen recently.
That's me. The patron called me yesterday, and I spoke to Dolores. And I said, hey, send it back to me because I'm going to remove the bill and I'm going to add it back to our collection.
Okay. All right.
So, but as I can see from the chat, and I know, and I understand why everybody does what they do. You know, you return it a year late, I'm going to take it back. I'm not going to charge you. I'm not going to make you pay. I'm going to refund your money if you did pay. Because kind of what Jen said, it's like, and again, we have a healthy budget, so I am not necessarily in the same position that some of you are. But if we can give the money back to the patron, they can use the library. It is positive, you know, experience for people. That's what, you know, we're doing. So
I'd say too, the court of public opinion makes a big difference. And I don't see that changing in any time soon. So keeping that in mind.
Right. Thank you.
I will admit that the unofficial policy for us is if it was lost anytime in like mid 2020, it's like, yep, well, there was more important things going on. And so that is our little break from what our standard policies are for deleted items. Because we are still getting those people coming back 2.5 years later. It's like, oh, yeah, we can work with you. Anybody else have anything to add for this? This has been good discussion so far today. We'll move to the parking lot. Cheryl from Cary had a question about Rails codes. And Cheryl, if you want to go for it.
Okay, so I'm having problems with the Rails codes because on the screen it's coming up with the branch codes instead of the main library. And I have like 7 new employees in the last 6 months, and they don't know the old codes that we used to use. So I'm having trouble. I'm wondering if there a way we could put like the first line would show the library code and then the branch be the next line, or is there some way to make this easier? Because we're having to look on cheat sheets to try to figure out where to address these two, because I had an issue with Rails telling me it was invalid codes. So I don't know how many things are getting lost or delayed because of the branch codes.
We have like a cheat sheet, I guess you'd call it, just posted next to the work computer for new staff, and then eventually they learn them by memory. But I know I had the same issue when we first migrated to Polaris, but I don't think, I mean, Mieko can speak, but I don't think there's a way to add the code to Polaris, but.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna send a link to a relatively newish page on our website One tab is a Rails delivery code list. If you did want to like print something out and have like codes posted up at your computer workstation. In terms of like what players can display, I don't know how much wiggle room, if any, that we have to adjust display.
Okay, it was just an
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah.
But may it go for these codes like ELA, we would just send them all to EAK, right? Not EAK dry, right? Okay.
Yeah. So if
That's what I
you
thought.
click, so there's 2 tabs on that page. The first tab is like the Polaris, like our local Polaris database codes and numbers. And then the second tab is the Rails code delivery list. So you'll see there, anytime there's like a branch or a drive up window, it will instruct you to send it to like the main location.
And was it just I don't know if the processing issue for Polaris that it wouldn't be able to display just the catch-all main branch code for items because it just would not be able to get routed properly for pickup? Is that all tied together, right?
So Polaris doesn't quite, Polaris kind of accepts things at like, I guess the surface value, right? It can't understand like the nuances of like Rails delivery about how to route things to main versus a branch. So if a hold is attached to a branch location, like it's gonna display that branch information. Like I said, I'm not sure I don't know if it's smart enough yet to where we can like tell it to, hey, if you see this, if you see A, display B.
Doesn't Winnetka Northfield do something like that? I mean, it's like they have.
Oh, sorry, Karen.
Oh, no, well, there's like parentheses and then it kind of says like where to send it, whether it's, Northfield or, Winnetka. I mean, is there some way to do that where it's like the branch and then that it has in parentheses the main library code after that? Just a thought.
Yeah. So the Northfield library is Northfield library and then in parentheses WNPLD.
At Northfield, we have our own code.
Yeah.
Although everything comes through Winnetka first, and then it gets put into a different bag and comes to Northfield.
So one other nuance to this is that we also have to account for when it's like displaying in places like the Leap Find tool and in the Power Pack 2. So like adding, an abbreviation to a branch name may make perfect sense for like circ staff, but a patron may be confused seeing it display in the Power Pack.
Yeah, and I'll chime in. The code, so the 3-letter code we have it as a 3-letter code, that does have to be unique, I think, for each branch. So we couldn't, put in, for example, the, PAK pack for all 3 Palatine branches. They do have to have their own unique values in there, which is why we kind of assigned the unique Rails code for each branch to that field. So it would be great. Maybe we could recommend it to Polaris if they could share a same value to make it easier. But at this time, we have to have different ones for each unique branch.
Cheryl, did you want anything more for discussion on that, or are we as resolved as we can be?
Yeah, that's as good as it's gonna be. So, okay, thanks.
Cool. Thank you. So got a couple of library announcements. one from Lake Forest for Tori, and then an opportunity for new CERC staff introductions, but Tori, go for it.
Oh, yeah, just to let you guys know, David, Salib, I hope I'm saying it right, has taken, pity on us. And he retired recently, but he does live in Lake Forest. And so he's agreed to be the interim director because they're currently interviewing. We lost, two big people. We lost our director and we lost Ed, who did operations controls the same month. So they're trying to interview both. So we do have an interim director and until we get a new one. So that's all. Just wanted to let people know.
No pressure at all, because cold introductions are not always fun, but like I said, I did talk directly with a couple of new CCS CERC folks, so I just wanted to give anybody a chance to introduce themselves or new staff that might be attending the meeting for the first time, but no pressure.
I can actually go. So I brought with me today Donna Beach, who is currently the assistant manager at the Northbrook Public Library. However, she will be interim department manager in just a couple of weeks. I will be leaving Northbrook on January 25th and starting as the executive director at the LaGrange Public Library. So this has just been, I wanted to take a second and say thank you so much to each and every one of you. I can't imagine, I can't imagine even be able to say how much I have learned from this group and from circulation in the last year. And Donna has been my backbone the entire time. So Northbrook will be in very, very good hands. And Donna, you are in very good hands with this group because they are the most sharing and caring group of people. So, hopefully you get as much from them as they get from you.
Thank you, Jen. We will miss you at Northbrook and congratulations. And yeah, this meeting was awesome. There was so much information. It's great. And I look forward to being at the next one.
I'm so happy we didn't scare you off yet.
Hello, everybody. I'm Brent. I am the new manager over at the McHenry Public Library District. This is my first meeting joining with you guys. I have had contact with some of the CCS members before. So hello. I also have brought one of my team leads as well. She is also joining me. So Kim, we had chimed in a little bit earlier in the meeting, but it's nice to meet everybody. Jen, congratulations.
Cool. Anybody else want to slide in? All right. So with that, unless there are any last minute conversation pieces or introductions, I always forget how to do the adjournment. I am going to what's the word? A motion for the January 13th CCS Circulation Technical Group meeting to adjourn. Do I have a motion?
I move.
So we got Ann, do I have a second?
I'll second. Anastasia Parkridge.
That was Anastasia, very cool. So all those in favor of adjournment, please say aye, type aye, raise your hand.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Piling in.
9, 10. Oh, we gotta be on overload there. Come on.
I agree. I like the people who do the shortcut with just the I. Smart. Any opposed? Want to keep talking? Right. So at 11:11, the CCS Circ Tech Group meeting is now adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We had lots of folks. We were over 30 people for the entire meeting. Good discussion today. And
sign in on the
sign in. Thank you, Tori. Excellent. Please sign into the login sheet that Mieko posted at the beginning of the chat, at the beginning of the meeting. Yeah. get ready to nominate somebody at the next meeting. It will be April 14th via Zoom.
Yeah, heads up, I won't do secretary again. So
Tori is tapped out. She's done 2 years in a row.
yeah.
She's good to go.
It's time for new blood.
Correct. And I'll be piecing out as the chair. So thanks, everyone. I'll stop blathering. Cool.